Okay, so welcome everyone. We are thrilled to have diễm, thúy back to campus. She was here last fall, but now she's our keynote author for the Fall 2025 Welcome Read as she shares memory, history, desire, tracing the creation of the gangster we are all looking for. So I'm Professor Cunahan, I have Professor Cimino, and Professor Schoenemakers. We are the organizers of the Welcome Read. And about our author, diễm, thúy is a Vietnamese American author, poet, and performance artist whose work explores the role of the body as the site of memory. She is the author of the novel we're reading, The Gangster We Are All Looking For, as well as many solo performance works. Oh, and we'd also like to thank the Kupferberg Holocaust Center, our funder for the Welcome Read.
Hello. Her writing has appeared in numerous literary journals, including the Massachusetts Review, Harper's Magazine, and the Best American Essays. Her solo works have been presented at, among other venues, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the International Women Playwrights Festival in Galway, Ireland. She has been an artist in residence at the Lenin Foundation and the Headland Center for the Arts, and is the recipient of a fellowship from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study, and United States Artists.
And as many of you who are already reading know, The Gangster We Are All Looking For resonates with students resonate with thúy's genuine and empathic voice. This lyrical, autobiographical novel tells the coming of age of a Vietnamese refugee growing up in post-Vietnam War California, navigating grief and the changes within her family affected by loss, war, identity, and economic instability. It is my honor to introduce her. Please welcome diễm, thúy.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Good? Okay, cool. We are setting up. John, you just let me know when you're ready, and I'll start the other stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and I just want to give a special thank to Allison Cimino and Beth Cunahan and Ilsa Schoenemaker and Laura Cohen for organizing this and making this possible. And I'm really happy to be back again and to know that you all have been spending some time with my work. It's so important to have things like this because when I make a piece, whether it's a poem or a performance or a novel, I don't actually know where it goes, So it's like, it isn't until I meet the readers or I meet the audience that I have a sense of where the work landed, right? So it's like I make the work, I spend a lot of time alone, I collaborate with people, but it isn't until I actually see you all or hear from people that I know or get a sense of where my work went, right? So oftentimes when I do events like this, I feel like I'm meeting the friends that my work went out to make, right? And ultimately it's between the work and you, but I kind of get this special opportunity to meet you, right? So the most important thing for me today is to entertain your questions, like whatever questions you want to ask me, like I'm here for, I'm game for. I'm gonna do a little performance excerpt that is the inspiration for the title chapter, The Gangster We're All Looking For, and kind of preceded the novel. And then I'm gonna show you some slides of the performance work so you can see, how it's related. And I'll read a couple poems maybe, but mostly I want to do a Q&A with you. Okay? Sound good? Okay, all right, great. So when we do the Q&A, I'm gonna float this mic out there, and if you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll bring the mic to you, and we can hear you more clearly. All right. Okay, John, are we good? Yeah. All right, good, okay. Cung, 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 cung cam vàng, sao vừa có sáng. Cung, cung cam vàng, sao vừa có sáng. Nước mai cam vàng, nước mai cam vàng, vàng cung cam vàng. Má ơi, rước con đi về, con muốn đi về. Má ơi, rước con đi về. Cung, cung, cung cam vàng, sao vừa có sáng. Vietnam is a black and white photograph of my grandparents sitting in bamboo chairs in their front courtyard. They are sitting tall and proud, surrounded by chickens and a rooster. My grandfather's broad forehead is shining. So too are my grandmother's famed, sad eyes. This looks like a wedding portrait, though it is actually a photograph my grandparents had taken late in life for their children, especially for my mother. When I think of this portrait of my grandparents in their last years, I always envision a beginning. To or toward what, I don't know, but always a beginning. When my mother, a Catholic schoolgirl from the South, decided to marry my father, a Buddhist gangster from the North, her parents disowned her. This is in the photograph, though it is not visible to the eye. If it were, it would be a deep impression across the soft dirt of her parents' courtyard. Her father chased her out of the house, beating her with the same broom she had used every day of her life, from the time she could stand up and sweep to the morning of that very day that she was chased away. In Vietnam, I lived with my grandparents in a house facing the South China Sea. You are where the beach would begin if I were standing at my grandfather's house. I would run across you and be in the sea. I could climb all over you and drown myself in memories of that sea. Here, there is my mother's rage, my father's lilting sadness. She shaved her head bare after they'd had a bad fight. He gave her a baseball cap to wear until her hair grew back, and she wore it backwards, like a real badass. How could he not be in love with her forever? In Vietnam, our neighbor, Lady Six, has a pigeon nest on her roof. Every morning, she throws day-old rice onto the dirt courtyard. The pigeons flock to this rice, a flutter of wings. Later, they sit, self-satisfied, filling the air with their throaty cooing, cooing, cooing. How do I recognize Vietnam? By the velvet sound pigeons make, by the drunken swagger my father takes, when late in the evening, teasing my mother, he loses for a moment his sadness and frustrated rage, and asks simply, sweetly for her name. And when she gives it, he repeats it softly, drinking her name in, drinking her name in. Mỹ, sao em khỏe không? Mỹ, sao mình khỏe không? Mỹ, so are you well? Mỹ, so are we well? All right. Let me just make sure this is on. Okay. Okay. You hear me okay? Yeah? All right. Okay. So I'm going to show you a picture. Let's see if this works. Okay. All right. Okay. So, here we go. I'll start here. This is my father and I in the courtyard of the refugee camp in Singapore. It was after Vietnam and before America. I don't know who the girl to our right is. Time has eaten away at this picture and taken part of her with it. But I always study her tilted figure sliding off the fold-up chair, foot alluringly turned. My father is 30 years old in this picture. I am 6. I don't understand what the camera is for, but my father does. He stands up straight, one hand on his hip, the other around my shoulder, and smiles his soft little smile, which is aimed at my mother, who is still in Vietnam. On the back of this picture, he will write his name, Lê Quang Minh, above my name, Lê Thị Diễm Thúy, the word Singapore, the year 1978. He is young and handsome and hopeful. He believes there is a future for us somewhere. When he smiles like that, who can tell him otherwise? Right. So I'd like to start here because the Vietnam War, the war that happened in Vietnam, is the unspoken condition of the entire narrative for the gangster we're all looking for. The Vietnam War is also why I'm here. If that war hadn't happened, I don't think I would have ever ended up in this country. So questions of well-being and memory and history are really important to me, partly because I work in English, and English is a language I never would have learned outside of these conditions, I think. But also, I came into English under great amount of pressure, and that pressure had to do with translating for my father. So, I was a very young child. I picked English up really quickly, and I started to speak for him. And so you have these kind of reversals of roles that are occurring. I'm going to read next a poem that is the first poem I ever wrote about this attempt to get my arms around the history of where I had come from and why I was here. And it's a poem I wrote in my first semester of college, and it's for my sister, diễm. Shrapnel shards on blue water. Every day I beat a path to run to you, beaten into the melting snow, the telephone poles, which separate us like so many signals of slipping time, and signposts marked in another language. My path winds and unwinds, hurls itself toward you until it unfurls before you, all my stories at your feet, rocking against each other like marbles down a dirt incline. Listen. Ma took the train every morning, sunrise. From Phang Thiếc to Saigon, she arrived, carrying food to sell at the markets past sunset. Late every evening, she carried her empty baskets home, on the train which runs in the opposite direction, away from the capital, toward the still waters of the South China Sea. Once, Ba bought an inflatable raft, yellow and black. He pushed it out into a restricted part of water in Southern California after midnight to catch fish in the dark. It crashed against the rocks. He dragged it back to the van. Small and wet, he drove us home, our backs turned in shame from the Pacific Ocean. Our lives have been marked by the tide. Every day it surges forward, hits the rocks, strokes the sand, turns back into itself again, a fisted hand. Know this about us. We have lived our lives on the edge of oceans in anticipation of sailing into the sunrise. I tell you all this to tear apart the silence of our days and nights here. I tell you all this to fill the void of absence in our history here. We are fragmented shards blown here by a war no one wants to remember. In a foreign land with an achingly familiar wound, our survival is dependent upon never forgetting that Vietnam is not a word, a world, a love, a family, a fear to bury. Let people know Vietnam is not a war. Let people know Vietnam is not a war. Let people know Vietnam is not a war, but a piece of us, sister, and we are so much more. Okay. So that was the very first, I think, articulation of what I was grappling with in terms of showing Vietnamese people to be more than just casualties of war, right? Wanting to be honest about the consequences and the effects of the war and its aftermath, but also first wanting to show that Vietnamese people were alive and had, joy and love. And the work is about that, trying to show people in the round, in the fullness, right? So I'm going to show you some pictures of my parents, and they're images that I used in the first performance piece, Red Fiery Summer. And then I'll show you some postcards that I found in 1992 when I went to France to do a field study about colonialism and representations of Vietnamese people through the postcards. So I had gone to France to do a very academic project, and I found that when I was looking at these postcards, they felt like I felt like I was looking at family pictures, and I wanted to figure out how to do something else with them besides an academic paper. So this is an image of my father during the war. He was part of the paratroopers in the South. And this is an image of my mother, the year that the two of them met. And I project these two images during the performance. And I really like them together because see how strong her hands look, right? And hold on, that's me in Paris. And then see, like, he's like trying to prop up his muscle, right? Like, it's like his hands look so soft and he's trying to prop up that muscle. And then she's just looking like monumental. So I liked them together. And then this is an image of me in Paris when I was, working with these French colonial postcards, one of which is here. And Paris was the first time since I had arrived in the United States that I was in a country where English wasn't the main language. And what it did for me being in Paris was that it made me remember the experience of going from Vietnamese to English. And it was crucial for my development as a writer, because it was in Paris during that time that I realized there was an English that I carried with me that was mine. And it wasn't about translating, at the welfare office, or it wasn't about anything like that. It was just an English that I carried that when I talked to myself in English, right? The other thing is that I started to make up these songs, these Vietnamese songs in France, one of which is Cung cung cam vàng sao vừa có sang. I sing these things to myself. And they were made up songs. So they have, some of the words are Vietnamese, some of them are just gibberish, but they're sung to the tune of a Vietnamese lullaby. So they have a familiarity. And so I was just playing with words, right? Words in Vietnamese, words in English. I want to go back to this picture because it has so much attitude, And I think that part of what I was grappling with was this question of whether it was possible for me to be my father, to portray my father, to kind of convey like his attitude, his charm, his charisma on stage, right? So this was all happening like, all in France this is happening. I'm in a place where English isn't the language. I remember English, I remember Vietnamese, all of this. And I'm looking at all of these pictures, right? Of these Vietnamese people who are reminding me of my own relatives. But this is like from the early 1900s. So it's not images of Vietnamese people who are being killed during the war, you see. So they're somewhat removed they're further back in history. And so I could actually relax and look at them and see that I wanted to collect them as if they were my family pictures, right? So this is the image in particular that reminded me so much of my father and my uncles, and kind of prompted this question of whether it was possible for me to embody my father on stage, okay? And then this is the girls, and this is how the image was used in the performance, right? So this is a scene in which I'm dressed as my father talking to these three men at an outdoor cafe in Saigon about the first time he sees my mom, okay? So this is how I ended up working with the images. And it was a way for me to bring history forward, right? To show like a US audience that before the US was in Vietnam, the French were in Vietnam. And then separate from that, history, right, is just that I was now interacting with these Vietnamese people from the past, in my own way and through my own family story. So these are just some scenes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is a poem that I wrote, and I want to show it to you because it's a piece that came to me in one go. It came exactly like this, and I'll read it to you. But I didn't, it's very rare that things just come in one go. But I want to share it with you because to me, this is a poem that is a lot about embodiment. It's about talking to the dead. It's a poem that I wrote arguing for a dress that belonged to my older sister who had drowned and whose name I have. Like, I wasn't actually given the name Thúy when I was born. My given name was Giang, and I had an older sister. Her given name was Thúy. My father and I left in '78. My sister left Vietnam in 1980, but she drowned at a refugee camp on the way. And so my I have her name it's a long story, but I have her name. And one of the things that my mother brought over that belonged to my sister was a dress, and I ended up writing a poem arguing for this dress. Okay. So, big girl, little girl. My sister was called Big Girl, I was called Little Girl. Big girl, little girl, wearing her dress like I wear her name. Don't you know? Sweat makes it mine. It means I'm here and living. When it was yours, you drenched it in ocean water, soaked it wet with your death. Ma had to keep it in the silky compartment of her suitcase, folded small and tight like a secret. And like a secret, it never dried. If I hadn't dragged this dress out of the attic, it would have spilled out. And me, the biggest girl now that you're gone, I would have had to swish you round the floor until everything you spilled was soaked dry by this dress. Isn't it better I dry it on my body? Each drop of sweat pushing back the waves, so that when I'm the age you left dying, I will have pushed the entire ocean out and gone leaping across it, both legs kicking in the air, the way we used to leap over jump ropes, running to meet on the other side. It didn't even touch me, we'd say, right? So, to me, this poem is so much, it's like, it kind of, encapsulates a lot of what my work is about, which is talking to the dead, the primacy of the body, the sensual experience of being alive, right? But very specifically through objects, through places, through, things in time. So, but this also is just what writing is about to me. It's a way to go backwards and forwards at the same time. It's the way in which in the present, you're creating a vibration that involves the past, right? But it's also trying to project into a future. So I think what I'd like to do now actually is to bring the house lights up and get some questions, because I don't want to run out of time for them. So John, if you could give me the house lights, and then we're going to send out this mic. So yeah, okay. Okay.
Can you guys come down here for the questions?
Let's take questions.
Yeah.
And tell me your name when you have the mic.
Yeah, come on over here. Thank you. Anybody who'd like to ask a question, please come on over here.
I gotta stand right here. What's up, y'all? My name is Kevin. So a question that I do have for you, because actually, like, me and you in person, it kind of helps with the book a little more. Like, now I feel more into it.
You feel more into it?
Yeah, like now I'm really more interested in the book.
I'm glad I'm not getting in the way of you getting into it. Nice.
My question is, when you did leave your mom to go to the refugee camp, like, did that help you build better character? Like, just, you said you was dealing with trying to image your dad and how tough he was. Like, how did that help with their relationship moving forward?
Their relation. So I got to back up. So I think the strangest thing about the hardest thing for me as a child leaving Vietnam was that I did not understand where my mom went, right? And so part of what I was trying to get at in Gangster, the book, is just the psychology. Like, how is a child supposed to absorb that amount of distance, right? Because I remember I asked my dad, like, where is she? Is she, like, and he'd say, she's not dead. She's just not with us. And I'd be like, then where is she, right? Like, if she's not, like, I don't get it, right? So I think that, there was a 2-year gap before me and my father were reunited with my mother. And I think in those 2 years, like, I had pretty much assimilated to being here, right? But I think my father hadn't. And so, like, when my mother arrived, there was a lot of first off, she arrived and, it wasn't at all what she expected. You see what I'm saying? So it's like different waves. It's hard to, it isn't like it gets resolved right away. It's just like, it's one wave after another wave,
Yeah, I
right?
understand.
But like, they're still together, I'm still their child, but yeah, so it's like you're growing through these waves of displacement. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so let me just show you, this is the bodies between us, and this is a second performance piece, and this is where I'm really talking about that experience of being on the boat. And like, this is after Vietnam, before we arrive at the refugee camp, and just like being out there in the water, right? Out there, like black night water, right? And what do? Like, you haven't been picked up, so the psychology of it is very important to me. Because if we're invested in the well-being of people, we have to understand like every part of the journey.
And that would be what, you climbing onto the ship?
Yeah, so that's going from the boat up into the ship.
Okay, yeah.
And then the set changes. So it's like I interact with it like a dance piece, So this is after like a scene where the father is talking about braiding the mother's hair, and so these three pieces have been I was braiding with them, and then I had undone them. So, it's like, but it's more abstract. You see what I'm saying? So it's like in the first performance piece, the set is a clothesline. Here, it's not identifiable, right? It keeps changing because the situation keeps changing, and we're going into the psychology of like what it means when nothing is stable. Right.
So, and one more question I do have. I know in like page 3, like in the very beginning, it's in the first chapter.
Okay.
You were stating that when you had arrived in San Diego, and the Russells, the Russells had taken you in because they were sponsored through church, basically.
Yep.
When Mr. Russell had died, right?
Yeah, and Mel Mel inherits these people.
And now you go with the family, and I see that it was a lot of. You were unstable in a way because you were starting to realize that they only did it because of the father.
Right.
And you were starting to seem like you were out of place, and that these animals, the glass animals and everything, like how it comes together is basically that.
You guys know what's happening, right? This is lit crit happening before our eyes. I mean, you're breaking it down, yeah. Yeah,
So I mean, I feel like it was that was powerful, like how you made that connection without really saying it.
Yeah.
But when you did decide to let, in the story, when you did decide to let the glass butterfly, go and break all of the animals and the shells down because you wanted to let it free, and you did leave, how was it like after that? Like after you left the Russells, because it stated that they basically told y'all to get out. I remember it was stating like that same day was the same day they had told you to get out because you had broken down all the animals that was sentimental to them because of it was the father's.
Right. So the glass butterfly breaks the case, right? It's like it's an emergency, break the case. How does it feel? The story continues. So, Satop, the first chapter, it ends. Satop is the first chapter too, because I wanted in English language, I wanted to break the word stop. I wanted my reader to actually wrap their minds and their tongue around Satop, right? Like to break a very familiar word. How many times do you come up to a stop sign? But Ba's pronunciation of stop is Satop. And so it's breaking English, right? It's breaking it. But it's breaking it another level, right? Because Satop ends after she throws the paperweight.
And then the uncles come. And then
Satop, Satop.
That's the uncles that came in.
So it's like breaking languages, like woo, 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 woo. So how does it feel? It feels like that.
Okay.
Right? But then the story continues. Next chapter. The trees in the neighborhood were palms and eucalyptus. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
so
I get what you're saying.
In this, you have 5 chapters, and you could think of each one as starting over. Let us begin again.
Yeah, like a new beginning and like another beginning in life.
Yeah. It's just like you could say, okay, I'm holding the beat. Yeah. I'm gonna drag it a little bit, and I'm gonna start another beat now over that one, right? So yeah. Yeah. Great questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, other questions and comments are welcome too.
Hi, my name is Unique, and first off, I want to say your opening was really awesome. I enjoyed it. Even the music, which you then later on let us know it was made up, through your visit to France. I thought it was very common, and the poem basically painted a picture for me, basically of like what you left. Even the words of you saying that the beach and you have so many memories that you could drown us into it. I thought that was very beautiful, and I think there was like a lot, I could go deeper into that in questioning like what were some of your memories being on that beach. But I'm not gonna ask you that because I know there's like, that can be really deep. But what I do wanna ask is about the title. The Gangster we are all looking for. To me, that was very powerful, and even though I'm not finished with the book yet, I have always, since I've been reading the book, I like the title. I've always questioned the title. Yep. Why did you choose that title? And how do you believe that title express everything or portray everything that you have in this novel?
Yep. Okay, great. I'll share with you that the publisher was not psyched about the title. I was asked by my editor if I would consider changing the title and also if I would consider publishing under Thúy Lê, right? Because Lê diễm Thúy is confusing. What's my first name? What's my last name? And I said, absolutely not. I said, the title is The Gangster We Are All Looking For, and I publish under my full name, which means my family name comes first. Because it's what it is. But I broke it down, and that's it, right? I love the title because it occurs at a very specific moment in the narrative where the child is saying it. But it's also a sense of horizon. Like, you don't know when you look at that title who is the gangster we are all looking for? And what about, what is that even, what,
It definitely, for me, was very powerful. It sounded like I can expect someone being strong in the story.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. So it's like, who is that person? Who is this figure, right? I've gotten pushback, actually. I've gotten some pushback from folks in the Vietnamese community at times who have said, we like the book very much, older folks who will say, but why that title? It doesn't reflect well, And I'm like...
I think it does.
I'm like, listen, we got gangsters too, So it's like, the words, is it true? To me, that title... It was always that title because it gives me a sense of horizon. I'm really invested in that mystery of where does this go, where does it end? But it opens up the avenues, I guess, right? Yeah, and it's not straightforward. You have to read the book and then even afterwards to think who was that? Who would that figure be and why that title? Yeah.
So, it was great.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Natalie.
Okay.
And I really was interested in, throughout reading, I really wanted to know how you dealt with the emotions while writing. Because this is strong work. I absolutely love the book. I think I finished it in 3 days.
Yeah. Well, one, thank you for reading it. Thank you for spending time with it. Thank you to your professors for teaching it. It means the world to me because it took a lot to make this work. I spent a lot of time myself trying to figure this out on the page. So it's nice for me to know people are spending time with something that I made. In terms of the emotion in it, I love the work of writing because it works me. in the way nothing else works me.
Exactly.
Right? And part of it is that, like I'm going into a lot of different things. I feel a lot, like my whole body is in it. But it's not emotional, like it's real, but it's not, like there's a way, it's controlled, right? It's a form of play and experimentation. It's about finding out. There's a kind of odd, safe quality. It's just like, I'm going to find out how this line, this sentence is going to go. Or I'm going to find like how this paragraph goes. Or so, for example, Mr. Russell, that name, right? In Satop. It's Russell because of the butterfly's wings rustle. Do you see what I'm getting at? And it's just like the name and the thing and the scene and the right? But all of it works together. It's not something you set out to do, but it's like, of course his name is Mr. Russell because it introduces that sound, right? And language is like that. I feel like if you hang out with the words long enough, they fall into place and help. Like I feel like the words are helping me to tell the stories that I need to tell. When I teach writing, my creative writing courses, I often begin the course asking students to write a letter to language and to ask language to come to them and help them do what it is that they're trying to do. Because language is the means, it's the tool, but we're also, we have to be humble with them, with the words, right? Because they're imperfect. We're imperfect and they're imperfect, but together, between my desire and language's ability to unlock things, I think like I can get closer, as close as I possibly can in my lifetime, to telling some of these stories that are so important to me to tell. And they're important to me, like I just want to make this super clear. I'm not invested in the story because it happened to me. I'm not invested in it because I personally X, Y, or Z. I care about refugees and displacement because it's happening right now in the world. It's a story that keeps happening, right? I have a certain angle on it. I'm writing it a certain way, but it is our present. And so I'm making work that is about now, that is tapping into currents that are still alive and wild right now. And I want my readers to wake up to the world through the work, in part, wake up to themselves in the world through the work, right? So the emotion is also, it isn't just like, there's a lot going on for me, I have a lot of feelings, I do, sure, but it's also the possibility, like the excitement of what we can make happen through making work, right? Because I don't know you, and you're standing here in front of people in your community and you're telling me like you love something that I made, right? And my thing is to say like, I love that you love it, and I love that it's yours. Right? Like, I love that. It's yours. Like, this work is yours. You can do anything with it. You can spend any time you want with it. You can give it to other people. You can forget it. You can come back to it. It's yours, and it's in the world with you. That, to me, is so cool. So thank you. Hi.
Hello, sorry. My name is Sierra, and before I have two questions.
Okay.
Before I ask them, I wanted to say that before I did not like to read at all, but I really like your book because it actually got me more invested into reading. And for the first question, I wanted to ask, like, in one of the chapters, it was mentioning how the father was like violent whenever he was drunk. I was wondering, like, was it like symbolizing PTSD or something when he was in the war?
Yeah. I think the character of the father, it's a lot of different things. Oftentimes when people are in battle, like you have battle experience, soldiers have trauma. I mean, right? They have experiences that when they come back into civilian life, there's not a lot of language for what happened to them. A lot of the work is about people not having language, like having experience but not having language, like not having language because they don't speak the English, but also not finding the words to describe even to themselves, like what the hell is going on here, So it's about how like life happens and language is late, right? Like language is kind of behind what is already occurring. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot that is unspoken about the father's war experience, right? And like one of my favorite chapters, scenes actually, is in The Bones of Birds, where the father and the narrator are quiet, and she describes it as like they pass the silence back and forth like a smoke, right? And it's like the words are going, but they're not talking about what they're necessarily thinking or feeling, but there's a way that passing just the silence back and forth with a few words is also a kind of consolation, you see? So, yeah.
Also for my, Also for my second question, I wanted to ask, like, for the brother, he was an interesting character to me.
Yeah.
Because it rose a lot of thoughts. Like, I was wondering, like, when you said about your sister, was he like a character to cover up for it, or like to symbolize it? Or was he like a complete separate person?
The character, so I lost 2 siblings. In my own life, I lost 2 siblings to water. I lost an older sister whose name I have, and I lost an older brother. So, so the work is a work of fiction in that I'm not writing every single, it's not, I'm drawing from my life, but I'm using it as points of departure, right? But the brother is a very crucial character because he's very present in his absence. You see, he's the reason partly why the characters, they're haunted, basically. Each of them is haunted in a different way, right? The mother kind of sews around it, the father kind of punches his way around it, and the girl is carrying that bag of ice, in the end of the second chapter. And it's like, that's the brother, right? So there's like a bodily memory of being near somebody, yeah. So the character of the brother is very important, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Hello.
Hello, my name is Maisha, and I just want to start off by saying that I really enjoyed reading your book in class. As a Gen Z, I can't remember the last time I was invested in a book like this.
Yeah. Cool.
And one question that I had was, not everyone can speak about their trauma and to transform it into like such a work of art. And, nowadays, I'm very privileged that the only exposure I really had to war is what I see on the internet or on television or what I hear from other people. So what was it that made you want to put your words into the story, that made you want to share your experience with everyone and write a book and have these performance pieces? What was like the main motivating factor to get your story out there?
Okay. The main factor was the split between how my parents were at home and how they were in public. The main factor was the fact that at home, these were 2 dynamic, charismatic, full of life people. And in public, they were, especially my father, very silent, very closed in, like almost like invisible. So that tension, that contrast between like the full human being and the afraid or whatever, and me being able to see that, right? And I had to translate for my father. That was the thing. So my understanding that like, there's no way I could represent this man. Like I can tell you like just the surface of what he's saying, but I can't convey to you like who he really is as a person. That's the motivation for me, is to actually get the full human being onto the page or onto the stage, right? And that involves like, not like, what's the word? It's not like, here's a poor Vietnamese refugee man who doesn't speak English. Those are categories. Who is Lê Quang Minh? Who is he, right? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he smile? Like, Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, I want all of that. Because I feel like when the categories keep us from like seeing the roundness, the fullness of people. So the motivation for me is that. It's just life. It's just kind of like, here are people who I want to be seen. And because I have proximity to them, I see them, I've heard them. And yet when we step outside, when we're on the street or I feel kind of like my parents were smaller, right? And I think out of deep love for them, wanted to shout from the rooftops, yo, these people are here. These people who cut your lawn and cook your food and take care of you, they're right here. And they have children who love them fiercely for the human beings, faulty as they are. You see what I'm saying? So that's the motivation. I mean, fundamentally, one word, the motivation is love. I mean, it's love. It's like, these are the people beside me, and I love them, and I want a place in the world with them and for them. And I made a book saying, like, they're in America. I made it, like, I announced it 20 years after the fact, but still. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, yeah, love is the thing that holds, man. Like, if there isn't love, there isn't, like, the struggle to say, you got that wrong, or you could get that right. Like, if you don't have that, like, then you don't know what's true. Like, what's true? Like, when we talk about truth, and, like, to me, when I'm after the truth, it's out of love, because it's, like, because the stakes are high when you love, and also because we don't have a lot of time on earth, each of us, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, my parents were already here. They'd been here. I had seen how they were treated. I had seen the difference between how they were treated in public and who they were in private. I had a sense of what their dreams were. And I wanted to create characters on the page that conveyed some of that, so that other people I don't even know, would, like, read this book and be like, that's a man, and that's a woman, and that's a girl, and that's a boy. And these are people. They came from somewhere, and the book ends, but, like, hopefully they're okay. Right? So, yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a really nice response.
Yeah, thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right.
Got it. Hey, my name is Jonathan, and
Hi.
I first want to say that I really like the book, and
Thank you.
not just because the way how you structure the writing, but because I also see a lot of myself in it.
Okay.
I came here as a refugee myself, and I was also born in an island just as you did, and used to climb the mango trees and all that. And at some point I would like to, like, also write something and tell the people from this country about how is life over there. And because even though we're, like, so close, in my case, I came from South America, and, like, we're, like, super close to North America. I feel like people here is, like, so disconnected to reality in that side of the world. And basically, my question is about, when do you, like, figure it out, like, oh, I want to, like, write about this, or, like, when do you knew was the moment to start writing? Was it, like, after you finish your education in college, or, like, you start from before, and then this is just like a collection of, like, different stuff that you wrote?
I wanted to write since I was very, very young, because I loved being with books, and I loved being with words. And I knew that, like the place where the words were was in the books, and I wanted to live there, because I was very alone. I'd spent a lot of time alone as a child. So I always knew that I wanted to work with words, and and that's usually what I say. Like, I don't say I'm a writer, I say I work with words, right? I think that you can start any time. Like, going back to love, like, I think, a prompt I often give my students is, like, write a portrait of someone you love, so that someone who doesn't know them can see and feel who this person is, right? So you are carrying inside yourself, right this moment, and everybody in this room is, you are carrying, like, a world of voices, a world of faces, a world, but you're the lens, you're the filter. And the things that are strongest for you are the things that, like, you got to make that mark about what is already loud in you, you see? So it's like nobody, you don't need to wait for nobody to ask. Like, you already know right this moment, like what's making your heart beat, you know? And I think if you stay close to that, then the words will help you to make the heartbeat on the page, so someone else can feel it, you know? Yeah, like that's the, like, I don't think anyone else can do that for you, because no one else knows what you love, you know?
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Mehrana. I really enjoyed reading the book, and one part that really resonated with me was the photo of the grandparents and the emotions that it brought out for the mother. And I really thought about it a lot, because they were angry at her at first, but it felt like they were trying to reconnect with her and show her love. So I was wondering, like, how would you describe what you were thinking of, what her grandparents were going through at that time?
I think so when the photo of the grandparents arrives, right, it's kind of related to my work with the postcards, where I was saying, like, you know, these postcards were made by French people only for other French people. So that the grandparents make this image of themselves for their daughter. It's like a way for them to send themselves to her, right? And the father says, like, and the mother starts crying, and the father says, like, they've forgiven you, you know? But and that may be the case, but it doesn't, there's some comfort in it, but the fact is they're still on the other side of the ocean. Do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like sometimes it's when you see the face or you hear the voice that you're reminded of the distance and all the time that's passed, right? And so I think, like, but to me it's like this way that the family is kind of reconstituted. It's a way that the grandparents show up in the only way they could show up, right? And that scene for me is just about the rawness of their arrival, like the grace of their arrival, but also the rawness. I just love that you are bringing this up, and it's making me emotional, because I remember writing that and thinking about the mother, the feelings that the mother's having at, like, right? But it's them, but it's not the body. Like, you wanna, do you see what I'm saying? It's them, it's representing them, it's them, it's a gesture, it's real. And at the same time, it's like, there's a very specific body, two very specific people, and they're on their, you know, they're over there, right? So it shows the distance at the same time. It pierces somehow. Yeah, it's a punctum. It's what they call a punctum. It pierces. Yeah, the picture comes to pierce her. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi.
My
Tell
name
me
is
your name.
Jean.
Jean.
Okay, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, why did you choose the title "The Gangster We Are All Looking For"? And the second one is, what message do you hope readers learn from the story?
Okay. So why did I choose the title "The Gangster We Are All Looking For"? Because you kind of have to read the novel to understand, I think, but also that it's spoken by the narrator. It's spoken by a young girl. And, you know, and she's saying, when I grow up, I'm going to be the gangster we are all looking for. And, you know, the father's the gangster maybe. The mother is pretty badass. She could be the gangster too. Or the girl could be, or the reader could be. You know, like, who is the gangster we're all looking for? I mean, sorry to take from Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, but, you know, like, who is this figure, and why do we need, like, why is this person desired, right? Like, what is the kind of fantasy of what would happen if she was the gangster? What would she do? What could she do, right? What could any of us do? But it's also a matter of attitude. It's kind of like, what do you do when your back's against the wall? You know, like what do you do if you can't go through the front door? You go through the window, like, right? So it's a matter of attitude too, and it's improvisation. In terms of what people take from the book, I can't tell you that. I mean, you know, like each of you knows for yourself, and you know, I'm here just to meet the people who have, in a sense, completed my book, because every writer needs the reader to complete the work, right? Like, I put it down, I say a girl, I say a man, but you bring your own image of a girl, your own image of a man, your own image of a chair, of a table. So you're bringing from your own life the things that the words are asking, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, I don't know how the work is completed by each reader, but that's the opportunity. It's like the work is an invitation for the reader and me to meet through the work, right? Yeah. Other questions or comments? Yeah.
My name is Gael. So my question is, I've noticed throughout the book, there's connection with water, with the narrator. How does that connect to you?
How does water connect to me personally?
Yes, personally.
Okay. If there's a body of water, the only thing I'm interested in is whether I can swim in it. That's how it connects with me personally. But also, I mean, in terms of the narrator and the story, they're boat people, right? So water is how they cross. It's also what is separating them when they end up in California. It's the body of water, the Pacific, is between California and Vietnam, right? And then it's the Vietnamese word nước, which means nation. And to be, you know, to be far from home is like to be a fish out of water. It's like a primal thing. It's like, right? So that relationship to being far from your homeland is through water. Yeah. Other questions?
Yes, hi, good morning.
Okay.
I have a question,
Okay.
which is what do you hope, especially young immigrants or their children, to take away from your novel?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that you're here, and wherever you are, however you got here, whether you have papers, whether you speak the language, whether you have a job, a good paying job, whether you have a home to sleep in, you're here, wherever you are. And wherever you are, whoever you are, you should never be treated any less than human. Never. There's no clock on that. There isn't like you get papers, then you get to be treated. No. From the jump. Right? And what I mean by that is the recognition. I mean, to say somebody is human, like to recognize them as full and complex as you are, is to acknowledge that they carry a world inside of them. You are in the world with people who carry worlds inside of them, and you don't know what that world is. But part of recognizing one another is to acknowledge the depth of another person, the interior, right? Like you see the face, you see the body, but the body is carrying worlds. And I think that wherever you are, whoever you are, however you got, you know, like from the jump, you are a whole person. And the world that you're in and the world that you bring are, you know, in relationship with each other. And so I feel like it was so important to me making this book. The girl is not me, the narrator's not me per se, but her parents are very much my parents. I wrote this book out of deep love. All the jobs that the parents in the book have are my parents' jobs. All the homes that are in this book are homes that we lived in. You know, we came up, I mean, English is my second language. I came up poor, you know, like all of that. But I was also came from people who knew that they came from somewhere and who knew that they were tied to other people. So it's like you leave the house, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing your family. Like, do you know, so there was a very deep sense of connection and a kind of dignity because, yeah, we're poor, yeah, we're struggling, but we know who we are. And we're not waiting to be treated like, you know, like there's no waiting for that. I guess that's what I would say. And being forced to kind of wait it splits you in very painful ways, right? And I think that's part of what I'm exploring in the book is the portrait of my father, you know, that if a man doesn't feel he can be him, like he can provide in certain ways, you know, then, or can speak for himself even, right? But so there, this fracturing occurs, and I think that has tremendous costs, you know, not just to the family, but to the community and to the society. So that question of well-being is like, it's every day, all the time. It isn't like on hold. But the question of like being recognized as a human being and just some basic human interaction stuff, I just think there's no waiting on that. There isn't a line. There isn't anything to get before you get to be treated as you are already. And I think that the portrait of the parents, that's part of what was driving me. Just these are full people. They laugh, they cry, they're in love, like they fight, you know, they had like I just wanted to be full. Because generally, like when you see Vietnamese people, especially in popular, you know, films in the US, they don't even talk. They're just there to be killed, right? It's just like they're just a backdrop. It's a war and they just die. And I just wanted to say like, no, before they died, they lived. And what does it mean to live? It means you love, you're hungry, you hurt, you have sorrows, you have joys. Like, I wanted all of that. I wanted that, you know. I wanted to see Vietnamese people in the round, in the fullness of their humanity. And so I would say, like, that's what I would want for everybody, anybody, anywhere, to be recognized in their full humanity.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dwayne. Aside from the postcards in Paris, was there another inspiration from your novel?
Was there another inspiration for my novel?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think the primary inspiration for the novel was to create a portrait of Vietnamese people in America that was looking at the aftermath of the war, right? So could I tell a story about war in its aftermath? So it's not set on the battle, right? It's not in the battle scene. It's afterwards. Because oftentimes when we look at war, we don't follow up. We don't say what happened to those people. So the inspiration, in many ways, was to say, guess what? These are Vietnamese people who come to America because a war has occurred in Vietnam, and they become Americans because that's what happens, right? Because they come into this culture. They're changed by the culture, but they will also change the culture because that's how culture works. It's alive, right? So the inspiration in part has to do with this idea of inheriting one another, that we are each other's inheritance, whether we are aware of it or not. We are related to each other in ways that we may not, even want to think about, but it's true. It's like something happens over there, and then suddenly your neighbors are these immigrants, these refugees. How did they get here? Why are they here? What happens to them? What will become of them? That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is what will become of you. What will become of you? Because I'm here, right? What will become of me because you are here? So how do I tell a war story? How do I tell a coming of age story? How do I tell, I think, a very American story? And have people who are not Vietnamese see themselves in this story. Just the way that I saw myself in so many stories that were not written about me. But I saw myself in fairy tales when I was growing up, because I understood, right, one day you're in one part of reality, another day you're somewhere else, right? So it's like the ability to recognize that the story, it might not be about you, but there's a place in it for you too, right? I think that's the deepest inspiration, is to create something that other people can see themselves in. Yeah?
Okay. My name's David. I just have a question about your writing. It's just, when I was reading it, there was a lot of messages of hope. How does hope affect your writing?
How does hope?
Yeah.
Hope? How does hope affect my writing? That's a good question. That's a good question. I think that, that's where desire comes in, right? So I talked about the memory part of things. The history part has to do with the war and, coming here. Hope is the desire part. Like, you can't create without hope. It's active. I mean, to do something that is pushing against what's unknown, to try to find out what happens next, right? For a character or a sentence, that's hope. But also, I think in the broader sense, I guess I gotta be honest, I think of my ancestors, I think of people who came before me, and I think people fought for me to be here, right? And I think I'm continuing work that other people struggled to make the world a place where I could stand up here and talk to you about what matters to me. You know what I'm saying? So it's I just think hope is the breath that we get from the fact that others came before us and fought for us. Other people fought so hard for us. And we're gonna fight for the future, right? That to me is we're in this, we're in something. And it's, it began before us, it will continue after us. And this is our time on earth to breathe, to be inspired and to inspire one another and to breathe into this thing that is life. So I feel as long as I'm after something, I'm after trying to be real, get it down on the page, get it onto the stage, make a sound, make a picture. Do you know what I'm saying? As long as I'm actively being honest about the things I care about, being honest about how I want to connect with people, then I'm on the side of hope, yeah. Because I want to be in a world where the fact that we're hurting, we're loving, we're hungry, we're frustrated, we're that we as human beings in the round, I want to be in the world where we can be this is me, right? And not hiding or, right? So I just feel I'm drawn to that, and I think so long as I have breath, that's what I'm after. And I think you can't do that if you don't have hope. But it's not hope for something specific. It's just hope that our story gets to continue, and that we get to, we get to build off of others' sacrifices and amazing, amazing beauty and joy. Like, I just think it's like, you know, swinging the world, like, in the time that you have. It's just like, it's like a move. Like, I just think, like, in the time that I have, like, I want to swing it towards the light, you know? But I think a lot of how you do that is you just show how dark it can be, right? Like, you show the stakes. That's what I mean about real. It's just like, you know, Faulkner said, like, yeah, it's like a match. You know, the match doesn't show the light. The light shows, like, how deep the darkness can be. But it also gives you hope and courage, because it's like, okay, that's how deep the water goes. Like, you want to jump into that? It's like, yeah, I do. Actually, I want to jump into that. You know, because, like, I know I wasn't the first and I won't be the last. Okay, we're at 1:12. So those who have questions, come right up and ask me up here, and other folks. But, like, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.